Before, it just felt like I was a failure. Nothing worked. And it was just constantly trying to put out fires that just weren't going to go out, like never ending fires that never extinguished. Versus afterwards, okay, we still have at times those fires, but we had better tools. We were more successful in either preventing them or calming them down, so to speak. And it really has changed.
Ever feel like you suck at this job? Motherhood, I mean. Have too much anxiety and not enough patience? Too much yelling, not enough play? There's no manual, no village, and no guarantees. The stakes are high. We want so badly to get it right. But this is survival mode. We're just trying to make it to bedtime. So if you're full of mom guilt, your temper scares you, you feel like you're screwing everything up, and you're afraid to admit any of those things out loud, this podcast is for you. This is Failing Motherhood. I'm Danielle Bettman, and each week we'll chat with a mom ready to be real, sharing her insecurities, her fears, her failures, and her wins. We do not have it all figured out. That's not the goal. The goal is to remind you, you are the mom your kids need. They need what you have, you are good enough, and you're not alone. I hope you pop in earbuds, somehow sneak away, and get ready to hear some hope from the trenches. You belong here, friend. We're so glad you're here. Hey, it's Danielle. I am so excited to introduce you to my guest today, an amazing mom to two named Lisa. When we met over a year ago, simple things felt impossible due to her son's diagnoses and needs, and Lisa was continually trying to understand what was sensory meltdowns, what was behavioral outbursts, and couldn't tell the difference between the two. She made every sacrifice she could to set him up for success, but it felt like nothing worked. The clock was ticking to get him to pass grade level standards as they were homeschooling, yet cooperation felt non-existent. And now, the impossible has become possible. In this episode together, Lisa shares how mind-blowing learning some of the scripts has been in improving her ability to prepare for and completely prevent meltdowns and outbursts before they start. She shares how life-changing it was to find a community with no judgment and find someone who heard and understood her family for the first time. And she shares her transformed outlook on how she manages the inevitable hard days of parenting a neurodivergent child, and ultimately has been able to successfully homeschool despite and through his demand avoidance. I'm so grateful that you get to learn from Lisa, so here is our conversation. Welcome to Failing Motherhood. My name is Danielle Bettman, and on today's episode, I am joined by Lisa, a homeschooling stay-at-home mom that I got to work with last year in 2024. Lisa, thank you so much for being here. It is such an honor and like the biggest compliment ever. So thank you. I am so excited to talk to you. We have so much to talk about, and you have a adventurous history and like a lot in your background that I'm sure I could pick your brain on. But just go ahead and give a quick intro. Who's in your family?
It's me, my husband, a 20-year-old daughter, and a 9-year-old son.
Okay, awesome. And you are a retired military family, is that correct?
Yes.
So where have you all lived?
We have lived in Hawaii, Washington State, Georgia, California, and Virginia.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. So how long have you been where you're at now?
I think almost 8 years.
Okay, so it's been a while. Yeah. So you're kind of grounded now. Are you going to be there for the rest of until and who knows when?
We don't know.
Yeah. To be determined. No, that's great. And have you been homeschooling the whole time? What's kind of your backstory with homeschooling?
So with my oldest daughter, we did public school, charter school, and homeschool. With my son, we tried registering him for public school, and he just freaked out. And so then we sent him to private school, and that didn't work well. We got a phone call, and And so to come pick him up. And so then after that, we just homeschooled him.
Okay, so tell us about your son.
So my son, he is very active, loves and is good at math and science. We did get him tested and found out he has sensory processing disorder, dysgraphia, dyslexia. We suspect probably ADHD, and we are looking to retest him again since he is older.
When did you get that testing done? How
We
old is
got
he?
that testing done right after first grade, so he was probably 6 or 7.
Okay. And what led you to initially reach out for those diagnoses?
So, well, at first I knew there was more to it than just him being an active boy. And he mentioned that writing was physically hurting. And with the doctor's visits, everything looked fine. So it wasn't physical. And we were doing homeschool through an online school. So I had mentioned to the teacher, we tried some of their suggestions and he kept saying it was hard. So then when we had his first grade teacher, I suspect not only had she had experience with kids like him, but I'm pretty sure she had someone in her family as well. I could be wrong. But she mentioned to look at testing him, find services that can test. So I looked into that. We were able to test him through a brain balance center, and they ran through all the testing, and that's when we found out that there was actually more to it than that. And so then I just read up on everything and looked for people that knew stuff and still learning.
Yeah, yeah. What was some of that emotional journey for you? Because I'm sure that was validating.
For me, it was really hard because the doctor's visit was always like, "Oh, he's fine, he's fine." And it was like, "No, he's not. There's more going on." And so I felt like I finally got my answers and I wasn't crazy. And I finally could find the right tools to work with him and stuff. And so I felt like I wasn't crazy anymore. I had answers and okay, I knew where to start looking because I had been looking and looking. And I think some of it was I wasn't using the correct words and terminology. So I wasn't pulling up things for dysgraphia or for sensory processing disorder. I was getting all the normal things for senses, for typical kids, not for kids that have that issue. And so it gave me answers.
Yes. So empowering when you feel like you're on the right track and you're in the right place. Yeah. Because otherwise you're so lost, and all of that good intention and all of your ability to meet his needs and solve problems for your family is really confusing. And that's where you get so exhausted because so much effort and energy is being drained into things that aren't helpful or aren't productive. And that can be really defeating. So, how did you end up coming across me?
So I came across you because what had been working was not working with him. And so he was just not wanting to listen to me to do any type of schoolwork. Every day was just ending up in tears. We tried all kinds of different schedules. We tried different rhythm flows. We looked into all kinds of different learning styles, parenting styles, behavior styles. And we even tried since I was homeschooling, we tried different homeschooling curriculums. And because we have certain requirements for our state that we have to meet a certain amount of progress in English and math at certain grade levels that they're in. So it was just like nothing was working. He was always in tears. I was in tears. We were both feeling like we were falling behind and we couldn't catch up. And it was just not good. And I was like, okay, something has to change. And I don't remember what I had typed in for searching, but you popped up, but you were in one of the homeschool conventions, I think.
Yes. The online summit. Yeah.
the online summit, and you were taught, it was about, I don't remember what it was, but it was, you specifically spoke to me and what we were going through at the moment. And I'm like, okay. And I felt like because he was on the higher age limit, I remember emailing you, this would be perfect for him, but he's not in the age, he's too old. And you emailed back and said, no, because of everything with him and because behaviorally he was, more at the age that you worked with. You're
Yeah.
like, no. And you had a few other people that you had found, right, going through similar stuff at his age. So you wrote back, said, nope, I got a group of people right where you're at. And so then, yeah, that's how we found you. And so I was like, okay.
Yes. Yes. Was there anything that held you back into the program?
Yes. So we were concerned about the cost and if we could make it work and if it would work. So for us, it was pricey, but we decided we were going to find a way to make it work. And what helped was the monthly payment plan. And so we found a way to cut costs elsewhere and go ahead and put the money into this. And it definitely was worth it 100%.
So, when we first met, you described kind of a day in the life and some of the things that you're struggling with and had goals. The biggest priority was to be able to continue homeschooling due to those standards that you kind of had to prove and meet that he was at pace with. What were some of your fears there of if you weren't going to be able to get this figured out?
The biggest fear was him not passing because we knew where we are. The public school system is not a fit for him. It just is not. When we know people who are in the system with kids like our son, and we also know people who are in our area that left the school because of kids that are like my son. And since the private school was not an option, we felt like our only option was homeschool for him. That was right for him because of all his needs and because of who he is. And so the biggest fear was, okay, he has to learn because that is the law and requirement. He has to do school. He has to do schoolwork. That there's no getting around that. So what is best for him? For him, what is best is homeschool, whether it's fully homeschool at home, whether it's using like an online school program or online curriculum or whatever. But for him, just because of all his needs, he has to. And so that was one of the things. It's like, okay, this is what's best for him. And he's fighting me tooth and nail and not wanting to do anything. And so, the biggest fear is, okay, what happens if he were to fail? He's going to be forced to be set in a place that's not right for him. And we're going to have even more problems. And so that was the fear of, okay, if this doesn't work, we're putting him into something that is going to be a whole another can of worms and that's not right for him and going to create more problems than what we had.
Yeah. And that's a lot of pressure on your shoulders.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So walk us through a couple examples of some situations that felt almost impossible. I think one of them I remember you telling me about is like cooking with him in the room. What were some of those examples of things that were just really challenging at the time?
Cooking with him. So because of his senses, anything, whether it's smell, sight, sound, all of that affects him to the extreme. And so for me, when it came to eating, I was having to wake up early to eat before him. I would skip lunch, honestly, and which is not good for me. And then dinner, we would try to feed him first and then let him go like on the computer or go to his room to play while we cooked our dinner and ate. So we were eating like really late at night, usually after he had eaten like, 7, 8 o'clock at night and stuff. And so it was hard because like the smells bothered him, the sight of the food bothered him, like he could not be in the same room. And so it really did affect everybody. And so it was hard. There are still things have gotten better a little bit, but we still at times still have those days at times because sometimes it just something sets him off. And so his go-to is fight. And unfortunately, that is his. thing. And so it does make it harder. But then there are days where after you, it's been where we can at least prepare him and he's fine with certain things in the same room. So now it's more of a roll the dice 50-50, whereas before there was no way at all.
Yeah. What about like going out shopping?
Oh, that was really hard because we were to the point where, well, I was to the point where I was looking at trying to work around going out shopping around my husband's schedule and stuff because anything again could set him off. But after and the thing was, anything could set him off. And it was trying to figure out, is this a sensory meltdown or is this a temper tantrum? And that was the biggest thing to try to figure out. Okay, is this something he can't control or is this something he can control? And it's him just being strong willed and stubborn. And so after with all the scripts and stuff and learning, we were learning, okay, he's having a hard time. We're having a hard time. We're all having a hard time. But the scripts helped a lot because all of a sudden I was like, okay, now I know how to prepare him and how to talk to him. So now I'm able to, if we are going to go somewhere, I'm able to sit down with him and say, okay, this is what we're doing. We're going to the store. Okay, I know this is going to be hard for you. We need you to be this. This is what we expect from you. If you're having a hard time, then these are the options and you can choose and stuff. And then also even I will include, if it's a day where we don't have time and we're just running in to get something and running out, I will include, okay, today is not a day where we add to your wish list. Today is we're only going and getting this, this, and this, and then we will be out. We will pick another day where we can go and you can add to your wish list. So it's not that everything was taken away from him, but he knows what's expected. He also knows, okay, this is if he is having a hard time, these are a couple options he can choose and stuff. And sometimes if my husband is with, then one of those options is one of us can leave with him. If it's just one of us, then it depends on what we're in there for, honestly. And so it has gotten better. There are times where he has now flipped the script where he's better with me and tests dad, but for the most part, he's gotten much better going out. We've been able to, but I think a lot of it is we've been able to figure out, okay, is this a meltdown or is it a temper tantrum? And there have been days where he has had a really hard day and I know, okay, there's no going anywhere. It's sensory and we're going to stay home. So I've learned a little bit better how to read the signs that he's giving. I mean, we still have our hard days, but
That's so huge because you never came in with the goal of fixing him, making him a different person, taking away the parts of him that is who he is and how he's wired. You just wanted to be able to understand him and be able to then acclimate accordingly to help him calibrate, to help set him up for success, to be able to feel like you can live and not be held hostage, to not be able to go anywhere, to not be able to eat, to not be able to do all of these things that, have physical needs and like every right to live within. But ultimately, you just didn't know. You didn't know what you didn't know to be able to understand what is this? Where is it coming from? Why is it so big and hard and aggressive and just with me? And that feels insurmountable at times. And so I think I appreciate your ability to kind of be realistic with those expectations and to be able to say up front, we still have hard days. He still has these like hard sensory aversions. And, we still have to work within his capacity. And some days I'm able to read what's possible and what's not, and what I can challenge and what I can't. And I think every parent wants to be able to know that line more often than not of, okay, I feel like I have the tools to challenge this and we can go to the store today and it will be a successful and I need to get what I need and I'm going to make that choice. Or today's choice is going to have to be, I'm going to do it after bedtime or whatever, because, I'm living within my means, I guess. But does that resonate? Does that feel like kind of where you're at now?
yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of it was I've learned, like you said, I've learned how to talk with him I mean, I still have the hard times where I trying to read him, but that's just every parent. But I feel like we have more good days than bad because when we came to you, I felt like every single day was ending bad and in tears for both of us. Whereas now I can say, I would say there is a whole lot more good days than bad days. I mean, there are still challenging days with him. As a parent, that's never going to change. And especially with kids who are neurodivergent, it's more. It just really is. And that's just facts. And I think a lot of it is us accepting those facts, those hard facts and truths. And so in some ways it's comforting, but then in other ways it's like, okay, what is the capacity for him? What is going to be, where does it stop? As in, where is his highest level, so to speak, of functionality for him? And you honestly won't know until he gets older. I can only continue to learn, but working with you like really helped us tremendously.
Well, that acceptance piece is a really big part of it. And I think you had almost accepted things prior to working together to a almost devastating level of feeling like this is my life. This is what I have to do to live every day. This is, it's going to be always survival mode. I just have to put my needs to the side and like it is what it is. And that's really harmful for your whole family's dynamic of like the culture of your home and like your level of optimism and like, ability to live and feel alive. There's pendulums to that all or nothing thinking of like, I've accepted it and this is what it is. And I'm living within that balance of I can challenge some things and I accept some things and I have tools on either side to help me with that. And I think that is when, because you stayed in the graduate group for the last 9-ish months. And so every time I would get an update from you, it would always be, here is a situation I didn't think was possible before that we were just successful with. And I would be so happy for you because it was like a level of delight and surprise. Like, I had written this off as not possible for our situation. And look at us now. This is what we just did. So, what's an example of that you can think of?
So one is, like I said, we've been able to go out. And one of the things has been, we haven't done it the last couple of months, but in the fall, we were able to go out with a homeschool group and made up of various neurotypical and neurodivergent families and be with them and, learn about nature, go out in nature, walk trails. Like you said before, I would have never thought that possible. And then the other thing was we really had a hard time with washing his hair, and just because of his sensory stuff, we still washed his hair, but it was always ending in tears. And he came up with a crazy solution of using a bowl and flicking water on his hair. And he got half his hair done. And then he asked me to finish his hair. And so doing that method, did it take longer to wash his hair? Absolutely. Did we get it done? Yep. And he was so proud that he came up with a solution that he washed his hair, with mom's help. He did half of it by himself and he was so proud. And I remember the call, we were talking and he screamed in the background and everybody just enjoyed his, I did it.
Yes.
And then I guess the other thing too is he has on occasion made pancakes and waffles and ate them. And one time he did make spaghetti and ate it. So for him, that is huge.
Yeah. What is something that you can make or eat now during the day?
Usually if it's anything kind of related to like pasta or pizza, things that aren't as smelly.
Yeah.
But then there are other days, like I said, it really depends on his day and stuff. But on a successful day, I'm able to do that. I'm able to eat tortilla chips with salsa because he likes tortilla chips now and he'll do different brands. Before he wouldn't do different brands, but now he does. Occasionally I can sneak fruit Today was not that day. Yeah, so I mean, it's getting better. I can eat different cereal from him in the same room, so
Yeah, that which would feel like nothing to another family, right?
right, exactly. For us, that's huge, so
Yes, and you should shout that from the rooftops and feel so excited for your family because they don't know what it was like before and haven't, experienced that level of restriction. And any win is a huge win when you're in your situation. And I think you really validated that as we've worked together. So to give a quick before and after, when we first met, I have you write down, how parenting feels, the number of kind of escalations overall at your house. And what you had shared with me is that parenting felt stressful, frustrating, and angry. And on a typical day, there was about 15 to 20 escalations with you versus about 2 to 3 with dad.
mhm.
And then when we finished working together after 3 months, there was about 3 a day and they felt shorter. And you got to see him starting to use some of his own tools that you were learning. So, what else would you add on to what you felt like the before and after was?
Before, it just felt like I was a failure, nothing worked, and it was just constant, almost like constantly trying to put out fires that just weren't gonna go out, like never-ending fires that never extinguished, versus afterwards, okay, we still have at times those fires, but we had better tools and we were more successful in either preventing them or calming them down, so to speak. And it really has changed. It really did change the house and stuff where it was, like I said, we're not ending every day in tears. Sometimes if he is having a hard day, I can say, okay, I know you're having a hard day. Let's figure this out. We need to work together to solve this problem. And sometimes he'll put on board, and sometimes he's just that strong willed fighter that, you know, is just gonna, you have to just pick your battles at times. And then another day, you come back at it with the same question, and he will give you the solution.
Yeah. Yep, totally. Here's the deal. If your child is sensitive and smart, yet loses it, is clingy, or aggressive with you at home, they can go 0 to 60 over the smallest things, like when they just don't get their way, nothing changes their mind, and they can't seem to get over it, and you know what you're doing isn't working, and siblings are starting to suffer. You could go to therapy yourself and take your child to therapy and follow all the experts and ask your family and friends for advice and take a course and set up a calm down corner and read all the parenting books and still feel defeated. It's time. It's time to learn the missing pieces of invaluable insight about their temperament that unlocks compassion in you and understanding of how to work with the way they're wired. It's time to communicate in new ways, like a hostage negotiator, to get through to them and cultivate cooperation with confidence. And it's time to eliminate the behaviors that are working to gain control and attention at their root, rather than playing whack-a-mole. Calm and Confident, the masterclass, is for you. There, you will master the kind and firm approach your strong-willed child needs without crushing their spirit or walking on eggshells. In this free training, I share the 4 critical kind and firm scripts that unlock cooperation in every situation, how to eliminate behaviors at their root, and the path to solidifying the open and honest relationship that you want to have with your child down the road. So go to parentingwholeheartedly.com/confident to access this exclusive on-demand training immediately. That's parentingwholeheartedly.com/confident. That link will be in the show notes. Pick your battles is huge. And it's so hard, though, to be able to do that with homeschooling because there are restrictions and limitations. And deadlines and things. So, what have you been able to make possible on some of that progress?
We were able to pass last year's homeschool with flying colors
Woohoo!
because our evaluator, she is certified special needs. And because of the tools I learned from you, he did have a couple episodes with her, but I knew how to handle them. He knew how to calm himself down. And so she got a glimpse into the lighter side of it. So she was able to give a real, evaluation and say, hey, look, the best thing for my son is homeschool. These are his strengths. These are what he needs to work on. And it was total agreement and stuff. And, it was good. We had mentioned some things that we were going to try to do this year for curriculum. And at first things working great. And then certain things happened and he decided to hit his fight, but we're starting to find our groove a little bit again. So we've done a little bit more work and we're going to try something new for curriculum wise, but working with him, letting him have his input, but also letting him know we have certain things we have to meet and it's a requirement, and working together to solve the problem, like your tools say, okay, what's the problem? This is our problem. Now, how do we work together to solve this problem? And this is our goal that we need to meet. And how can we do that? And so it's been good. And like I said, one of the biggest things is we've been able to be part of a group and go out in nature and, learn science that way and be around other people. And it's just been really healing for both of us to be able to do that and be surrounded by other people.
Absolutely. I think parenting kids like that would be very, very isolating. And there's a lot of loneliness and there's a lot of just self-criticism and, just feeling confused and lost. And, your mental health really takes a beating. And I would love to hear how you feel like you as a parent and your experience of parenting has evolved.
So I know before we met you, part of me finding you, I felt like I was failing motherhood, and because I do homeschool and because I'm at home all the time, and I felt like we couldn't go anywhere, I just felt really drained. And I've tried so many things and nothing, like I said, nothing worked. So it was like, okay, is this me? Because it was funny because growing up, everyone's like, oh, you're a great teacher, all this stuff. And so,
Yeah, you were trained to be a teacher, right?
so I studied to become a teacher, and then I ended up not getting certified because I kept missing the English writing by one point.
Oh, gosh.
And then I met my husband, and so life just took a different turn and stuff. And so,
But you had those shoulds in your head of like, you should be able to do this. Sounds cool.
and with my daughter, I kept up with everything, and I picked my daughter's teacher's brains and stuff. So I stayed current with all of what was being required for standards for grade levels and what was expected, what was new and all that stuff and what was old. And so, and I even tutored for a little while a few years back, and I was good at using the way we were raised and what the new way and combining them and teaching both styles. And then basically just saying, okay, if you're required to show the new way of how you solve a problem, then you do it that way or do how your teacher wants you to show your work. But if it comes to testing where it's only the answer that matters, do what works best for you. And a lot of them just do the old school method for the testing, and their grades went up. And because I also use what they like, but also take in real world that relates to them with how you can use whatever math you're using or science or whatever. So for me, it was like, okay, everyone's telling me I'm good at this. And I felt like I am not good at this. Everything I've tried is not working. And based on everything I've read and learned, this is supposed to be working and it's not working. And so I felt like, okay, not only as a failure as a mother, but a parent, as a teacher. And, I'm like, okay, now how do I meet these expectations I'm supposed to be meeting with him if I can't do any of this? And so, yeah, so I really took it hard. And I'm the type of person that if I'm good at something, I take it very personally if it's not working. So it could be not my fault, but I will make it my fault somehow.
Well said. You're not the only one. Yeah.
And so then my husband had a hard time because he saw this person that he's like always encouraging me and knew I was good at. And it's like, he felt helpless and hopeless because he's like, okay, nothing he's telling me is registering. So it's like, and he hated seeing me down and sad, and it was hard on everybody. And so, and then my son here, after we had talked with him, and he felt like no one understood him, no one was trying, and that broke me because reality was I was getting up super early, doing all this kind of research studying, staying up way past my bedtime. So he never saw me. So it really does take a beating. You take a beating. And so it was just really, really hard. And then when we learned how to talk with him a little bit and we started learning some stuff, and then I just told him, because he is a little bit older, I was able to say, hey, look, mommy was doing this. I know you didn't see me do this, but I was doing this for you to help you and find ways to help you. And so he started being like, okay, a little bit understanding. I don't think he fully understands how much I went out of my way just because of his age, but he began to understand a little bit, okay, mommy is trying to help me and stuff. So that did make a difference. And so then after it's like I have become happier. Like I said, we've been able to go do stuff a little bit and stuff. My husband is getting me back a little bit. I mean, there's still challenges, but, so we still have our hard days, but not as many as before.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad that you have been able to come back a little bit. That makes you a better parent, even though it's not like you were a bad parent before, but you were completely drained, just completely, surrendering your autonomy and individuality and needs to try to meet his, and it still wasn't working, which is the worst part of it. It's like if the level of sacrifice could just directly correlate with the outcomes, then you would have been having no problem at all. And that's what it feels like it should be. But the cruelty of it is that it's not. And that, I think, is just horrific on the parenting experience side of things, because we just think if we check the right boxes and we give of ourselves so completely and we do all of the things that we're told to do, then surely we'll get good results on the other side, especially when it comes to our relationship with our kids, especially when it comes to his fundamental understanding of wanting to feel understood. How heartbreaking to know that, like, out of all of that effort, that need was not being met. That's devastating to hear. So what do you feel like when you tried everything, what made the difference or was different about some of the things that you learned as we worked together or being inside the community or the program?
The two biggest things, one was he's having a hard time. He really was really having a hard time. And we as parents were having a hard time. So everybody was having a hard time. And then the other biggest thing was we finally had a community that there was no judgment. Others were in the same situation or similar. And then the other thing was the scripts. The scripts were huge because I was like, okay, I have words for what to say and when to say and how to say them. That was tremendous because it's like I had tried talking with him in all the other ways, but I had never tried talking to him in those ways, in that way, with those times. And it made a big difference. It really did. And to me, it's mind blowing to just be able to use those scripts at the right moments, that would just totally change how we can go about our day. It was just mind blowing to me. It still is, that I can prepare him with those certain scripts, say, okay, this is how to talk to him and the words to say to him. And then just say, okay, this is how I expect, this is what I need your help with. I expect this from you. This is going to be hard for you. So I'm not dismissing that this is hard for him. And these are your choices for how you can handle this hard situation, whatever it relates to. And so he still has a choice, but it's a choice that I'm okay with. And I think that was another hard thing was for me, it was like, if I give him a choice, then he's going to do whatever he wants, where I was learning, okay, I can still give him a choices, but still meet what I need him to meet. That was another huge thing is I can still give him choices that I'm okay with, but he still feels like he has choice.
Yeah. And one of the themes of when I hear you talking is the emphasis on the and.
Mm-hmm.
That there can be two things that are true at once. And I think that that's a big part of some of our coaching and conversations is being able to name and come to terms with that they both can be true at the same time. They can coexist and you can find sanity without negating one or the other of those things. And I think that that can be really freeing when you live within those means.
Yeah. And I think for him, he felt like, okay, he's being heard. And I think that was huge because, like I said before, he felt like he wasn't. And it wasn't us not trying to not hear him. It's just we didn't understand.
And you would probably have said you didn't feel heard either.
Yeah.
Because you were having to like force and yell and like go to these desperate measures to get him to do anything you needed him to do.
Yeah. And then even then, because he is a fighter and strong-willed, it was just like there were times he just would not. And that was hard on me too, because it's like, okay, in my mind, I see this long list of things needing done. Nothing's getting done. So I see this list getting longer. And like, okay, now what are we going to do? How are we going to make this happen? But the irony is, if he puts his mind to it, the amount of work he can get done and the amount of work he does in his head with math, especially, is just mind blowing. It's like he's his dad's math mind. I mean, he can get stuff done really quick in record time if he puts his mind to it. And so it wasn't that he couldn't do it. And so that at times does make it harder because he is very high functioning.
Right. You know he's capable.
It makes it harder where, okay, I know you can do this. You're choosing either not to do this or you're not doing this because it is related to one of his learning challenges. And so at this age right now, our biggest thing right now with him is he's saying things are getting really hard really fast. And it is true because it is getting very hard very fast. And I honestly, most teachers and parents say the things they're expecting kids to learn at this age, they should not be required to be learning, but they are. But because I know how to talk to him now, I can say, okay, look, I know this is hard. This is something you should not be learning until your XYZ grade or age, but we can still work together to do this hard. Like yesterday, he did probably pre-algebra geometry, working with reading lines and shapes and labeling them. And yeah, but it's a crazy 4th, 5th grade requirement, and I'm like, first he's like, nope. And I'm like, look, this is something we have to do. And like last week, he fought me because he didn't like the idea of multiplying fractions.
I don't blame him.
But he can do it. And he did good when he did it. It's just, it was hard. And I told him, it is hard. I hear you. And we still have to do this.
Yes. So much of what you're describing, I think, can be classified as the neurodivergent symptom called pathological demand avoidance, where because there is a demand placed on him, his natural inclination is to resist it and to feel, put in a box and to feel like very restricted and then to kind of rebel against that just naturally by default. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be something he's good at. It could be something he absolutely hates. And it could be something that, he enjoyed yesterday. But because it feels like a demand, it feels, outside of his control, it didn't feel his choice, doesn't make sense to him, doesn't feel necessary, right? Like it doesn't matter. Kind of all those classifications can just instantly cause that demand avoidance, which makes it almost impossible for you to work through that as a homeschool mom, as his teacher, and trying to manage that relationship between teacher and student while also being mom and kid, and trying to work with this neurodivergency. And I think that was one of the things that I really like affirmed while we were working together, is like, you are doing an advanced level of challenge by taking on that teacher student role, because this is so permeating and like the default. And that's, of course, what causes a lot of parents to feel like their back's against the wall, to feel like they are helpless, and to feel like they have to take desperate measures, because the alternative is it doesn't get done. And with homeschooling, you had this looming threat of like, that means that he has to go back to public school then, and it's going to cause all these new other problems, and like you have no other choice. And so of course you're going to feel like you have to lash out, or like, to get by any means necessary to push through these demands. And what I think I hear you saying is now the scripts helped you feel equipped to work with that demand avoidance and find some cooperation on the other side. Not every time, not every day, but in a way that unlocked things that were impossible before. Would you agree?
Yeah, scripts absolutely 100% unlocked stuff for him. And because of how you laid out the scripts on the scenarios and when to use them and how to use them, I was able to take those and do that with him. And it really did make a huge difference. Like I said, we were able to go into stores, without a sensory meltdown and without a temper tantrum. Like, that's just huge for a neurodivergent child. And not even asking to put something on a list, and like being able to run in when you need to get a couple things and run right back out. That was an impossible situation before, and now it's possible. And then even when it relates to school stuff, it's like, we can do this. And I have given him a little more input because he is older on, okay, this is what we're required, but we can pick and choose.
Because I remember he even like agreed to spreading things out through the summer. Wasn't that a conversation last summer that you kind of like offered, here are the different terms and conditions? And he surprised you by agreeing to more days of school. Isn't that right?
Yep. He chose, because the option was we could do longer hours and finish and have, about maybe month and a half of summer break. He chose he would rather have less hours for the day and work through summer and maybe have 2-3 weeks of summer break. And that's what we did. And it did surprise me because of who he is and how he is. I never in a million years would have picked him, especially him as the child and kid, to be the one that would say, okay, I want to work through my summer. I picked him to be the kid that would want summer.
Right. I love that, because that's the best dynamic, is to be pleasantly surprised by your kid, showing up in ways that you're like, prove me wrong, please. I would love to be proved wrong. And then when you are, there's no better feeling, because it's essentially being able to see them work with the way that they're wired and within the means of society to ultimately meet that goal or be able to thrive. And that's all we want as their parent, is to know that they have the skills necessary to be able to make decisions to be successful, and be able to know what battles to pick in life, or how to get through those hard emotions, or to be able to kind of persist and to be more resilient. And when you have kids with demand avoidance, it does very much feel like they don't have the skills, or they're not going to be able to do hard things, or they're not going to be able to, when push comes to shove, do what they need to do. And that is scary as a parent, because there's so many situations they're going to find themselves in that we can't prevent or like stop them from, or like, inevitably they're going to be their own person with their own struggles. And we just want to know that we've done our due diligence to do what we can with the things that we can control to, bestow that upon them in any way that we can with our influence. So, do you feel more confident?
I do. And one thing that I just thought about with that him choosing that working through summer, it became hard for me because I love my summer and I
Yeah.
love. And so it was like, okay, now I lose my summer.
Yeah, fair.
But in the eyes of him, it was a win because he chose something unexpected. But yeah, I feel more confident. The biggest thing is I'm able to better read him more days than not. I still have days where, like I said, it's a challenge and I do have a hard time reading him. Sometimes I get it wrong still. And then there are days where we get it right. But with a neurodivergent child that's strong-willed and fiercely independent,
Mhm.
you're always going to have a challenge. You do have to take each day as it comes and remember to breathe. And every day is a new day. And you have to look at it as, okay, every day is a new day. Be prepared for those challenges. And I think because of your course, I'm better equipped for those challenges that come. I know there are some that are going to come in. I'm going to have to learn as I go. But
Yeah. There's always going to be a new curveball.
the biggest thing, like I said, was the scripts, the community, and just finally somebody heard us, our entire family, and there was no judgment and was there to offer advice and a different way to look at it. And so that was huge.
Yeah. Yeah. An untapped market that you hadn't found yet of understanding exactly where you're coming from and where he's coming from, and being able to navigate and validate both sides in a way that brings you together rather than apart, ultimately. Very well said. Any other advice you have to share with any listeners that feel like they resonate with where you were before, or, having a kid that fits some of these criteria?
Never stop learning. There's always hope. Things do get better. Keep trying. Take each new day as it comes and breathe. You will find your people. You will. You might not have them yet, but they're there, out there.
Yes. It makes it so much more manageable to know that you're in a club of people in the same situation, even though you never asked to be a part of that club.
Nope, you really don't.
But we're here and we're doing it together. And that is so empowering. Yes. So to wrap up then, how would you describe like that question that I ask every guest that comes on is, how are you the mom your kids need?
I guess I am more aware of his needs and more aware of the right tools for him. I am getting better at finding those few minutes to take care of me so that I can try to be more aware of what he needs through all his challenges and continuing to learn to read his signs and continuing to learn all the tools that are out there for him and then just trial and error for the different things that might work with him till we find what works. It does get better and it's not you, it's not them, it's just the situation you're given and you just have to find the right tools for your situation for your child. And that's the key.
Exactly. Yes, I support that 100%. He's lucky. Both your kids are lucky to have you because you are so persistent and determined to keep learning, to keep growing, to sacrifice anything that might possibly help, and recognize the compassion needed for both sides, that you are having a hard time and it's neither of your fault. It's a problem to solve, and you can do that together. And if you continue in that mindset and that worldview and with that skill set, there's no problem that you can't figure out eventually. And I think that's super hope giving when you feel like ultimately that's where you're at, as opposed to what we described before, where everything just feels impossible and you really don't even know what you could challenge, or if you did, how you'd go about it, or how that would ever be successful, and, finding yourself in that place. So I'm really, really proud of you. You should be so proud of yourself. I think the Lisa I met a little over a year ago wouldn't believe that she'd be on an episode saying these things.
No, not at all. I would never have imagined the successes we've had. I really wouldn't. And I can't thank you enough. Like, you and what you've created is just amazing.
Thank you.
And you have an amazing heart for families like us. So can't thank you enough.
Thank you. And thank you
Now
for...
I'm going to cry.
I know. It's okay. Thank you for trusting me. And thank you for trusting yourself to know that you are worth the investment, and to not let those shoulds stand in the way of, well, I shouldn't need that because of my teaching background, or this shouldn't be this hard, or, I'll figure it out, of just knowing that it's worth it. And that work continues to pay off for you as your skills build and your muscles are strengthened, and you practice this over and over, day in and day out, and just being kind to yourself ultimately. That's what has continued to have you get up every day with that optimism of like, it's a new day. Let's try again. Let's take it hour by hour if we need to. You're doing something really, really hard, and love is not enough to get you through. I know you have a lot of it, but you need even more than that, right? To stay sane. So it's truly a testament to your work and your determination to figuring this out, that has kept you coming back, kept you in the graduate program, kept you committed. And I couldn't be prouder to have you as a client. So thank you again for the ultimate compliment of being able to join me for an episode. Thank you for your vulnerability and honesty and sharing from the depths of your heart where you've been and where you're at now. And I think it is truly an honor for those listening to be able to be on that journey and have a front row seat to kind of hearing you figure it all out. But you will never arrive. There's always tomorrow. So I'm going to keep seeing you. We're going to meet one-on-one soon and talk through some more things. And that's the reality. But once again, thank you for being here.
You're welcome. And thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Failing Motherhood. Your kids are so lucky to have you. If you loved this episode, take a screenshot right now and share it in your Instagram stories and tag me. If you're loving the podcast, be sure that you've subscribed and leave a review so we can help more moms know that they are not alone if they feel like they're failing motherhood on a daily basis. And if you're ready to transform your relationship with your strong-willed child and invest in the support you need to make it happen, schedule your free consultation using the link in the show notes. I can't wait to meet you. Thanks for coming on this journey with me. I believe in you, and I'm cheering you on.